All right. I believe this means we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions, welcome to another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, aka Some Gadget Guy, the SGG of this terribly named podcast series. But the QA, that's the important part. That's the part we really like. Obviously, a question and answer. We like to make this an interactive conversation as we kick off our tech week. Sometimes we've got some hot news broke over the weekend. Obviously, a big embargo is lifted for Android fans this week. And we want to chat out what's going on. And I've got a lovely list of names and faces already in this chat right now. Jimmy Fire Dragon making sure we're all staying hydrated. We've got Farhan saying hello. Miguel Reyes finally catching alive. Love to see it. Happy to have you. Connelly, Conneely, I am so sorry I've mispronounced your name. Not me vibing to the music. I gotta say the AI music on Restream has gotten a lot better. So it's been kind of a fun groove getting into every week's show. Ron Guido, how's everyone this Monday? Georgie's saying hey. Bradley Larcher wishing everyone a happy Vivo X300 day. Fred Gilbert starting his morning off with an oolong, a delicious oolong. I love that. You know what? I maybe need to switch over, just kind of do tea for a bit, just see how we're going. Vazico saying hello, hello. Mr. Scotty 30. Let's hope the Vivos are globals. Fernando Velasquez saying, hey, Juan. I've got Stevie listening live from UNM. Everyone's a Lobo. Woof, woof, woof. Al Zombino saying sounds good, giving me my mic check, and ASOT5 also checking in on the audio. Oh, just a few more at the end. Yeah, we've got Kib48 saying hi, chat. Hey Kib, how's it going? So, I'm gonna take this week's show a little bit lighter. I have way less news. Um, I've been blowing out my voice week over week, and then over the weekends, just as I'm starting to kind of feel like everything's healed up, I then coach a softball team, and my daughter's been getting really into her friends' teams. So, for example, we had softball games or night games on Saturdays, but some of her other friends, or her boy friends, play little league and pony and bronco Sunday mornings. So I went from blowing out my voice Saturday night for the softball game to blowing out my voice again Sunday morning because I know a lot of the kids at her schools. I was like, hey, Benny, get back there. Let's do this. Hey, Jay, good pitching. And then I can't do a show on Mondays. So I'm going to be really careful over this next week. I'm going to try and keep everything a little more chill and just it's starting to get to the point where it's making video production more difficult because I can't count on any consistent, sort of voice. If I start shooting a video on a Tuesday and let's say I need to do some pickups or I need to reshoot something on a Thursday, I sound completely different. It makes it really hard to staple two pieces of a video together. Um, so oh dang it, I couldn't catch that cough. That's another thing too, is like I'm really dry and I'm coughing a whole bunch. Let me take a quick sip of water. Let me knock out some housekeeping. We can get right into the news block. And I kind of assume we want to spend a good chunk of time talking Vivo. There was an iQOO leak. Some really interesting things happening way early in 2025, where these are the phones that used to launch like in December, are phones that are getting into people's hands in October. We're getting real ratcheted. Oh, old Trev, your daughter wants to leave the house. That sounds nice. You know what? It's all of the social animal stuff. She enjoys the play dates and the hanging out with her friends and getting to see people. And for as long as I can encourage, at some point it's gonna flip, right? At some point she is gonna latch on to something and like just be staring at her phone as like a sullen teenager all day every day. And I'm gonna fight that for as long as I can. So let me housekeeping. Let's jump into some housekeeping. I got some interesting projects out and some stuff that I was really proud of. So I do want to let me scroll this down. First off, just on somegadgetguide.com, the public version of this video finally went live. The Status Pro X triple driver true wireless ANC earbuds. I think these are the premium tier sound quality earbuds of 2025. And what I mean that is like there are a lot of reasons to spend more than 50 bucks on a pair of earbuds, true wireless earbuds. And then you climb up to $100 and you're like, okay, now we're being a little bit more selective. And then you start jumping into the $200 price range. And I think Apple's big argument is you can't really do anything else with our competitors' earbuds, so you have to use ours. If you want a goodish sounding earbud that is intrinsically linked to the iPhone, has full support, full capabilities for everything that Apple wants, Apple is really good at blocking competitors with their accessories. Like, look at the smartwatch options on iPhones versus Androids. You can't get nearly as deep. You can't use a Pebble to the same extent on an iPhone as you can on an Android because Apple is terrified of any kind of competition and they can use their size and their sort of market dominance to prevent anyone from having the same access to their products. So you've got to spend that money on on AirPods Pro if you want the bestest earbuds with the best capability feature lock-in with the iPhone. On the flip side of that, if you're not looking for the most advanced techie earbud with all of the fanciest electronics and detection and you know alternative listening modes and things like that, but you're looking at if I spend a little bit more and um, that hardware drives an audio consuming experience. Status, I think, is one of the more fun brands in this space. This video coming out, it's been hilarious. Do I have my? No, actually, I think my Status are downstairs. No, they're right here. Excellent. So I have the little Status Pro X. The second I publish this video public, I would say about half of the comments I'm getting are asking for personalized comparisons against the Soundpeats H3. So the Status Pro X are a true wireless triple driver earbud, and the Soundpeats are significantly less expensive and also a triple driver earbud. And it has been kind of interesting, just like I know my audio videos don't do nearly as well as they used to. Like YouTube just seems to freeze out whenever I don't talk about three specific phone brands that, oh, well, even though there's an audience for earbuds and for headphones, we're not going to show your videos to any of those people. Um, it has been pretty wild just seeing the interest in some of this audiophile conversation. There are reasons to spend more on audio products, and there are companies that are starting to play with some really fun and exotic configurations. And also, I feel like that that conversation has challenged some of the truthiness. Like whenever I would post a video about some KZ earbuds, like, oh, these are triple drivers, someone would inevitably come into the comments and be like, well, I mean, you're paying for triple drivers, but you can make a single driver sound just as good. And you're like, okay, I get that. But for someone like me, there's a novelty and there's a quality to a multi-driver earbud that I find really interesting. And if you've got these different audio components making different sounds at different frequencies and they can specialize, then I think you can do something really clever with that. Now, it's not always the purity of an objective audiophile accuracy listening, but if I'm gonna spend $200 on some earbuds, like, why can't I just have some fun? Why in my $200 headphones? Like, I just can like something, and the novelty of it can sort of bring that to the table. So it was pretty great. Clicking back over. Oh, so you can catch both of those. Actually, watching those two reviews back to back is kind of fun. Status Pro X and the Soundpeats H3, just a fun trend with multiple drivers and true wireless earbuds. The other biggie, I've been sort of wrestling with this video for a while because it's kind of dumb, but it works. So if it's dumb and it works, is it really? It's really not that dumb. So I've been trying to work in a few more videos about these sort of home backup power solutions, crate battery, solar generators. Title of this video: How big a battery do I need for my fridge? The dumbest way to figure it out that still works. So let me cut to the chase. Spoil part of this video right now for you all here on the live stream. The best way to figure this out is to get one of those little watt meter testers with the memory function. Cost you like 15 bucks. If you're looking to spend thousands of dollars on some kind of home power backup solution and you want to know how long you can run appliances on $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 battery configuration, spending 15 bucks is probably where you want to go. If you don't want to spend the 15 bucks, or there's just something happening and you need to make kind of a decision quickly, or you're just trying to get data and you don't want to mess around with other things, this is the video that details my really dumb solution for figuring out what the math on that looks like, because I think it is infuriating to try and figure out how much power does your fridge use. You do not get a straight answer. I want everybody, when while you're watching this podcast or after, if you're listening to this podcast, just Google how much power does my fridge use. You will not get a straight answer. I was trying to figure out on my new fridge, because a fridge can have like a surge power rating. When you turn the fridge on, it briefly consumes significantly more power, and then it settles into its operational power level. So you have to know, if I get a battery, not only can it sustain the power draw of the fridge in operation, can it handle that brief spike as the fridge turns on, the surge of power as it turns on. There is no documentation on my current fridge's surge. Samsung does not tell anyone what the surge on my fridge is. Nobody knows. There's just no way to know unless I go and spend $15 on a power meter with a memory function. It's so frustrating. So this is one of those videos. I'm like, I'm trying to make something a little practical here, but to do the math on this, you really have to know how your fridge operates. And then from there, you can get a really detailed look, and you could buy a battery. You could say, hey, how big of a battery would I need to power my fridge for an entire weekend? Let's say the power cuts out, and like when we had those fires back in January, like we went 2 or 3 days before we had an evacuation notice. How big of a battery would I have needed if I just wanted to go solely off battery power and let that just sort of occupy the kitchen for 2 days straight? There's a way that you can do the math on that. And I'm so tired of these vague generalized estimates, even on all the battery manufacturers' websites. You go to Jackery, you go to Anchor. What was the other one? I think I had a Lie Power at one point, EcoFlow. And you go there and they're like, well, if you have a side by side door refrigerator, that's like between 10 and 30 hours. How much, type it into a search engine right now? How much power does a fridge use? Between, like, I don't know, like 50 watts and 1,000 watts. Cool. I guess I'll buy a battery between 50 watts and 1,000 watts. That's a battery that exists, right? So we got to take just a quick moment here. A shout out for Gary the Fireman, subscribed with Prime, subscribed for 47 months. We are coming up on our 4-year anniversary, Gary. That is amazing. I cannot thank you enough for all the support, all of the conversations that we've had, just kind of shout outs on the podcast. Gary is a real one, and all the love and support for firefighters out there. My uncle is a retired firefighter, and I always forget what time of year it is, but you ever see firefighters out on street corners holding a boot? Find some cash and chip in, man. If you can, if you have the means, like just go visit your local fire station, maybe buy them a meal. Like, just hook it up, man. That's amazing. And again, a huge thank you for all of the love and support and all the people that come to this podcast. I really do appreciate it. As I am trying not to hack cough into my microphone for this whole show, Gary gets one acapella fanfare of glory. That was a pretty bad one. It's not my worst, but that one was not my best. From Colin Murphy, fridge and freezer power usage depends very much on how often my children leave the door open. Let me also tell you about the fights we have with the thermostat. From Georgie, come on, the power backup video was fun, especially the audio method. I thought it was clever. I thought my solution, because it's again, the smart solution is to buy this tool that is not expensive that gives you granular details on your fridge operation. I did not do that. I have one now, but I did not do that when we were looking at a battery upgrade and I clicked on, oh, actually, I can do the math on this. The math isn't that hard. Let me just figure out a way that I can measure the cycles. So I think this is actually a fun. It's supposed to be kind of fun and dumb, but it works. Again, I like finding those tricky, like I talk about camera sensor sizes. I like finding those things that like, oh, there's a correlating data set here. And if I look at camera sensor sizes to phone prices, I can quickly predict which phones are going to have better cameras. Like if you do basic math, you can do these really cool things in your head really, really quickly. This is a video that's maybe going to break 1,000 views. Like YouTube is going to poop all over this video because I'm not talking about like the next Vivo phone or a Xiaomi or a Poco. What was my last like super highest viewed video? Oh, the OnePlus 15, OnePlus 13 video that I did, the follow-up video. So because of that, I only get hundreds of views on a video like this, but I'm glad I made it. YouTube sucks and I hate you, YouTube. You're the worst. But I made something fun. And I guess the people on my Patreon got to sort of experience it first, and it was a good way to sort of chat out some of that stuff. So it was great. Um, from Fat Produce, I'll tell you what, with the moves Google is making against sideloading and other grabs is controlling my experience. I'm super tempted to get a Pixel and use Graphene OS. Well, buy a refurbed or a used one, because if you're like, I know, I'll show Google, I'll give Google $1,000. That'll show Google that I'm going to Graphene. I don't like what you're doing with Android, so I'll buy a really expensive phone from you, is not the statement I think a lot of people are making. Let me just wrap up housekeeping here. We got one more. I was going to turn this into a video, and I got to be honest, I am so backlogged on videos that a lot of my editorial stuff, I'm having to back off. I think this video probably would have done okay, but it's another one of those things, like it's a laptop or a mini PC. It's not going to get a lot of traffic. I'm in this kind of, I don't think I'm depressed, but I'm feeling apathetic to public YouTube distribution. Like I find like I've got this list of videos I'm chewing away on. I'm really excited about the content, the topics, the kind of conversations I can generate. And then it comes time to publish something on YouTube and I just don't care anymore. If I got the video out in early access on the Patreon, like I feel like I'm kind of done. And I just don't care about that second part anymore because I know YouTube's not really going to give any of these other videos a fair shake. You go into all this and I'm so sick of people, oh, I didn't know you only cared about getting views. Well then, shut up. That's a stupid thing to say to someone who's trying to create content and build conversations. Like you just walk around yelling to no one. I've got thoughts and opinions on things, but I don't care if anyone hears me. Like, shut up. So again, I sat on this for a little bit longer than I wanted to, then wrote, I think it's 2,500 words. And I got to sitting down thinking, like, you know what? I just don't want to shoot this as a video. I I kind of just let me just I edited it slightly so that it wasn't my conversational video script style. And I got a couple photos and I slapped those all together and you're like, Yeah, this is gonna be a written editorial. I don't think I need to talk at someone for 20 minutes about these experiences. But what I'm talking about is Surface Laptop, Qualcomm chip, and Windows on ARM 1 year later. Windows on ARM has had a rocky history. Lately, Microsoft seems to be taking the platform more seriously. Hardware manufacturers are gearing up for a new generation of laptop ARM chips. Now's a perfect time to take a look back at the last year of ARM computing. A year after getting the Surface Laptop 7 with an ARM chip, how has the experience been? And I go pretty nerdy. And I think it's exactly the kind of video that YouTube isn't interested in. If I actually tell you what the experience has been like, and I look at the software that's improved, and I talk about emulation and Prism, and I'm looking at battery life and just sort of how the system is aged, what I think the expectations of the new X2 chip are going to be in relation to this, some of the hardware that I didn't take into account, some of the hardware design elements that I didn't take into account when the laptop first launched, but as I've been using it a ton with experience, these were things that I found. YouTube doesn't care. There's no trending data right now on Surface Laptop 7, so that video would just die. And I guess that's where we're at. So right now, early access on the Patreon, there's a 1 year later video, a 1 year later article, editorial, just kind of looking back on my experiences with the Surface Laptop 7 with the Snapdragon X Elite chip inside of it. Oh, and Farhan, thank you for saying that. Your Surface ARM editorial is worth reading. Really love it a lot. I'm glad you enjoyed it. From Fat Produce. Oh, whoops, clicked on the wrong one. Fat Produce. YouTube is the perfect example of where lack of competition stifles everything else in the industry. Again, it's like I've kind of aged myself into this spot where like the competition is where do I get to talk to the people I like? And YouTube does not facilitate that. So if I've got to make it myself, why would I spend copious amounts of time and effort and energy trying to convince YouTube to put me in front of the audiences that would like these videos if I'm also still going to have to go out on social media, share the video, bring people to the video, set up my Patreon, do all this other stuff? Well, YouTube is just dumb server hosting then. If it's not a discovery engine, and I know that these are video topics that score well. Someone will put out a video like mine after me, but that they honed in on just that one narrow niche of a tech conversation and their video will do like 10 times the traffic. So I know my video could have done well if those audiences had ever experienced it. But instead it's, well, you've got these subscribers. So did you drive more traffic with your subscribers first? No. Okay, well then we'll shut your video down. That's not how this used to work, and I'm bitter and I'm tired and I'm old. From Ramron, I've been out of the loop when it comes to phones. I have a question. My dad has a Pixel 7 Pro which is failing. He's complaining about its size and wants something compact. The Fairphone 6 is a bit smaller and then he could repair it, especially since he's a mechanic. How does their camera compare to a Graphene OS Pixel 7 Pro? I don't have that data off the top of my head, but just assuming camera sensor sizes, I doubt the Fairphone's sensor sizes are going to compare like for like against the Pixel 7 Pro. So, assuming you're using similar camera apps, I would believe the Fairphone would perform poorer as you push into more challenging lighting conditions. If you're in great bright light, he probably won't notice. But as you start pushing into like cozy indoor lighting, maybe nighttime shots, things like that, that's where sensor size really comes into play. And that sort of depth of field, the photographic look that we associate with nicer images. The Pixel 7 Pro, I believe, would beat the Fairphone, but someone please correct me if maybe I just overlooked the Fairphone 6 and it surprisingly has like Vivo grade camera sensors in there, then please put that in the chat so Ramron can kind of get better data than what I'm trying to do from my aged memory. Mhm. Oh, from Rain. I have the Surface tablet with the Qualcomm chip and I love it for school. I dig it. I love to hear that. Again, it's one of those things. Is actually I'm putting together a video just looking at like Chrome. I have that MediaTek Chromebook against my Surface Laptop 7, and just this is we could have had this before. This already could have been in the pipeline. Chromebooks have been playing with ARM chips for a while. I'm very positive on what consumers are going to get over the next couple years with humongous battery and performance per watt improvements. So that's I've got a couple other things. Everything that is coming to the channel and publishing publicly, somegadgetguy.com and patreon.com/somegadgetguy. Best two places to really see what I'm working on. So if you like my YouTube videos and you want to see my YouTube videos, guess what's the worst place to get notified on when I put out a new video? You're right, it's YouTube. So if you join as a free member on Patreon, you don't get access to all of the articles and deep dives and videos, but you'll at least get notified. And then when things go public, if you want to throw somegadgetguy.com into an RSS feed reader, you will get alerts when I publish new stuff, which you will not get even if you smash bell icons on the YouTube. So, um, let me get this out of the way here. So, uh, I'm gonna hold Nick Gay. I can't wait for a comparison of the Surface versus Lenovo Chromebook. Nick Gay is the primary reason I started building that script. Nick Gay was the first one to say, "Hey, I know what you're doing. This is cool. I love that you've got this MediaTek, but what about your Surface?" Nick set me up. So this is the thing that I love. I do not get this collaborative energy on YouTube. When I go to my own website and when I go to Patreon, folks ask questions. They're curious about this stuff. I did like a full tech support run in the live chat. The Patreon has its own private chat in addition to the Discord that I like to use, and like it stimulated three different topics for upcoming videos. As if I was just helping someone kind of work through a minor issue on one of their phones, and you're like, I don't get this anymore. Ever since YouTube stapled Google Plus to their commenting system and tried to force, this merging of accounts, it's like YouTube has been hell-bent on destroying the more forum-based conversational text threads that we could get into. And social media is just decimated that conversational relationship. It's so dark. And then I go to Patreon and they're like, "Hey nerds," and they're like, "Hey Juan," and then we just talk through some stuff and they're like, "Oh, that is such a cool idea. I need to do a video on that." And I don't know, it's just like I feel so replenished when I spend no time on YouTube, and that didn't used to be the way. From John Gow, I love my Surface Pro 11 hardware. My experience is mostly good, but there are some annoying Windows bugs here and there. The battery life is a bit disappointing. Well, I'm sorry to hear that about the battery life. I would ask if you'd had any experiences with previous Surfaces, because I went from the Surface Pro 9 SQ3 to the Surface Laptop 7. So that is not an oranges to oranges battery capacity kind of comparison. But from previous Surface Pros with Intel chips to my Surface Laptop 7 with the Qualcomm chip, you are absolutely correct. There is a lot of garbage in Windows that I really hate. But the performance in battery has been a significant improvement over where my previous experiences with Surfaces and Intel have been. So I just be, like, again, the perspective or what your previous experiences were like, just what you might think. Okay. Let's knock out a little news. I have to bring this one up, and this one was actually brought up on the Discord, on the private Discord that is attached to patreon.com/somegadgetguy. Everything that we're going to be talking about, the housekeeping, the show notes, the articles that we're going to discuss, everything is going to be available on this week's blog post on somegadgetguy.com. You can click on all of these articles. I hope you read them. It's how we kind of not only stay up to date, but then we see how stories evolve. So it's not okay to just look at one article headline on social media, get outraged by it, and then get on with your life. We want to see what happens. We want to see how these things change over time. They have huge ramifications for the things we do all day, every day. And it's kind of on us to be those ambassadors of good data in a time of horrific weaponized misinformation. And when we talk about things like horrific weaponized misinformation, we always got to start off with stories about the FCC and Ghoul chairman Brendan Carr. This article was shared on the Discord. I forgot who shared it. I didn't put the notes in this. I am so sorry. I want to credit the people that actually shared good articles and stories. I suck. I'm sorry about that, but I did not find this first. This was shared. You can also tell that I did not find this first because it comes from The Verge. And I really don't like sharing content from The Verge. So this was written up by Jess Weatherbed over at theverge.com. Brendan Carr wants to let internet providers charge hidden fees again. The proposal comes in response to complaints by ISPs over a Biden era transparency rule that took place in April of 2024, arguing that their self inflicted billing complexity made it impractical and burdensome to list every fee they impose on consumers. Compliance with the rule requires that ISPs either create a broadband, quote, nutrition label that makes it easier for consumers to accurately compare plan prices and avoid hidden fees, or include those hidden charges in the overall price. And this is the place that we're in. Go to any red state, like deep red county, and just go talk to people in there in those areas and say, hey, you pay for internet, right? You have like TV and internet. Do you like it when your internet company says they're going to charge you $100 for service and then you get your bill and it's like $130? Do you like it when you try to look at your bill and see what is it that I'm paying for, that all of this data is sort of hidden? They tack on a whole bunch of things at the end of your bill and they don't explain what those things are, and you didn't know that that's what they were going to do. Would you go to the grocery store and say, "Hey, I want to buy some eggs." And then they say eggs are going to be $20 a dozen. This is a future dystopia that we're living in right now. Eggs, for some reason, are horrifically expensive. So then you go to the cash register and there's a refrigeration fee and a styrofoam packaging fee and a stacking fee. And then there's a walking through the aisles fee because they've got to mop the floors after you walk through the aisles. Then there's a conveyor belt fee for the register. So you put the eggs down. Well, that's another fee because you got to pay for those conveyor belts. And then you finally ring up those $20 eggs and they're $45. And you'd be fine with that, right? You're okay with that because that's what you keep voting for. You keep voting for people who say it's okay for companies to lie to your face and say, this is how much our service costs. Oh, until you start using our service. And then we're going to tack on all these extra fees and all this extra junk. And none of that goes to infrastructure because we still don't have gigabit broadband throughout most of the country, even though we're sitting on an incredible investment in dark fiber from decades ago. And you still don't have options for competition because the ISPs have sort of wheedled their way into preventing competition in any area they work in. And we got the barest minimum of considerations during the Biden presidency, where all they would have to do is list out their fees and tell you what you're paying for. And conservatives made that a deal breaking overreach of authoritarian excess. They politicized company has to tell you what you're buying and how much it costs. And now we've got this ghoul in the FCC who's turning that around and saying, you know what? Let's just scrap that plan. People don't need to know how much things cost or what they're paying for. And ISPs should be allowed to charge you at any time as much as they want with tacking on extra stuff. So now I would highly recommend. This is one of those stories that no one will give a poop about if you're pissed off on social media. I can get likes and shares on Mastodon because those nerds care about things like this, but that's not going to go anywhere. I would take an article like this and contact your state attorney general. I would contact your local elected officials, your state government officials, and say, this is not okay. And we need to talk about a state driven solution, especially if you're in like a California or a New York. Well, if the ISP is going to start doing stupid stuff like this because the Federal Communications Commission has abdicated their responsibility to regulating this space, I would appreciate it if the state of California, the state of New York, the state of Texas would actually back something like this. Texans don't like getting ripped off, right? Who does? Contact again, pause this podcast or finish this podcast and come back to this later. Write an email. Copy, like write out one little paragraph of text. I am very disappointed in the FCC rolling back this rule. I think it's to consumers' benefits that we know what we're paying for and we know how much it costs. And I would appreciate some conversation at the state level to return these types of regulations to the market, which would benefit the citizens of fill in the blank of your state. Kindest regards, your name. And send that, copy that out and send it to everyone who is ever voted for in a local election in your area. And you will do so much more seed planting on an idea like that than if we just, bitch about this on social media. This is exactly one of those things that horrifically harms consumers in an era of terrible economic impact on the middle class. And we're nerds, we can care about it, and we can point our ire at the people who actually can make some kind of difference. Just like right to repair, how difficult it's been to get right to repair up at a federal level. Just like net neutrality, where states are making their own rules about net neutrality that every broadband provider has to like kind of jump through hoops state by state. This is something that we can now enact at the state level. The FCC has decided they don't have the authority to do this, which they totally should. So I guess we'll just make our own FCC with blackjack and women of ill repute. So, it's pretty great. Gary the fireman. As Howard Stern says, F the FCC. The FCC won't let me be me, so let me see. I love it. That's hilarious. Some conversation. John Gao was talking. He previously had a Surface Pro 4. So yeah, much better. I would imagine much better battery life than an older Surface Pro 4. John Gao. Oh, it was John Gao who shared that one. Awesome. I love it. That was a good share because again, I don't pick up The Verge unless I absolutely have to. So I'm happy that you sent it my way. Um, Oh, WX Roamer. Hey, Juan. Hello. I found myself waiting patiently for you to go live. I'm so happy. Well, I'm so happy you're here too. Let's see. On the road tang and a breathing the air fee. Why do you expect to have free air when you go to the supermarket? On the road tang, why are you a pinko liberal, commie, fascist, socialist, ne'er do well, wants everything handed to them? Why don't you just pick your lungs up by their bootstraps? Or junkie. Isn't that already the norm in restaurants in the United States? Unfortunately, a lot of the restaurants that I like to frequent, especially the mom and pop, like locally owned, not the chains, it's gotten tough because I really want to support those businesses. I love how they're a part of the community. There's this cute little Italian deli right across the street from us. And they make these awesome subs. You walk in and you see all these fresh pastas, and they bring in stuff from Italy that you can't find in regular supermarkets. And the prices are horrific now. And it is so hard. Like, yeah, maybe I want some prosciutto, but man, that's spendy. I think we just need to do like another week of Costco, sliced deli turkey. Ooh, man, it's tough. it's really tough. Like the disposable income that we can spread around has like gotten squeezed in a vice. Gary the fireman, Texans don't like AI surveillance. I mean, again, I think if you go with like tech ire to a state like Texas, I think Texans would be like, no, F those companies. And you're like, yeah, they would support this legislation. I actually kind of have high expectations of Texas after they passed right to repair. I actually have a higher opinion of how we phrase this. As long as we don't go in there saying like, oh, Kamala Harris and AOC. I bet Texans would be all over something like, hey, Texans, don't you think it's stupid that your ISP can just charge you whatever they want and hide what the billing is and you don't know what you're paying for? I don't think that's a liberal or a conservative statement. I think you'd just be pissed off. And some Clippy for life comments in here too. We got to do one more quick shout out here. I got to scroll this down. Where did it go? Where did it go? So I saw Gary. Oh, there we go. Another shout out of glory. One Mr. J-Man 150 subscribed at tier 1 on Twitch. Subscribed for 29 months. Has another just like record, like long stretch of subscriptions. J-Man, you also get a horrifically bad, terrible acapella fanfare of glory. And in all seriousness, thank you. I really do appreciate the support and the people bringing these conversations, the people financially supporting these conversations, and then just again expanding on this. It's not fun when you just sort of write something or you shoot a video or you get on a live stream and you're not talking to anyone. You don't feel like you're reaching anyone. It's not like I'm trying to change everyone's mind. A lot of this is also, I love it when some of my ideas get challenged, that back and forth, that dialogue, that expression. And I at least am happy. I appreciate that most of the people I encounter and the audience that we all sort of work in. I would say the audience that we're all a part of is I'm going to other channels of like-minded individuals. Is that we're kind of agreeing that there are problems. We might not always agree on the exact boundaries of the problems. We definitely don't always agree on the solutions to those problems. But man, you look around and things are not okay. And it's all right for us to admit that. And then that's the first critical step to building the solutions that we might want to see. It is dark out there when I'm outside sort of the techie spaces and I'm talking to people and they're no attachment to any of this. They're mad that their phones cost more and they're just not getting as much for their money. And I don't know what the solution is. I guess I'll not change my behavior until something gets wrecked and then I'll ask for sympathy. I like people who are at least a bit more proactive in keeping an eye on what the heck is going on. So moving on. Um, Let me take a quick drink of water here. 1 second. There we go. I just had to bring this one up. I've been doing a lot of like hard drive and NAS videos and just how to kind of play around with storage, make your own cloud storage solutions or build a media server. Having a lot of fun like mini PCs that can kind of jump into these attached storage solutions and stuff. So this one popped up again on the private Discord. It was one of those that just like, man, this kind of story kind of breaks your heart because this stuff hits people hard, and it's just a gentle reminder that. So, for example, I've got a box of hard drives over in this bookshelf that is the core storage for a lot of our family memories, photos, documents, stuff like that. That is not a backup. That is active storage in operation. Right now, I'm talking to my mom and my uncle that we can maybe do like a little round robin triangle where I'll set up hard drives at their place, they can set up hard drives at my place, and they can set up hard drives with each other. And then every night, at 3 in the morning or something like that, we can say, hey, hard drives, any new changes, just share that data across the three drives. And that way we would have data intro the most important obviously I'm not backing up I'm not going to back up my entire like media server, maybe a couple key movies, but it's okay. Like I lose my movie collection, that hurts my soul, but if I lose all my family photos, that's devastating. Offsite backups are now becoming increasingly easy with consumer grade tools. And so now you've got backups. A NAS isn't. Did I say it right? I said NAS. Isn't NAS. I like saying NAS. Isn't a backup. It is operational storage. And if you can't put your data in 2 or 3 other places, then you don't really have a backup. And if it fails, you are dead. So that was a lot of gilding the lily because this story is tragic. The article that was shared came from lowyat.net, written up by John Law. South Korean government facility loses 858 terabytes of data in fire with no backups. According to Chosun, technicians at the NIRS were relocating lithium ion batteries within the data center when, almost an hour in, the batteries exploded inside the room, engulfing all of the G drives. G drives, by the way, stand for government drives that are used to store data on. The G drive stored data for around 125,000 federal workers, each of whom were allowed 30 gig. Worse, the drives were essential to 163 public facing services and stored everything from import and export certifications to product safety checks. And this data was operational. This data was critical to services and functions. And this data was not backed up. I would imagine that inside the facility, they had a lot of, they probably spent a lot of money on redundancies and how to keep those servers operational. And if something happened to a server, how to like restripe that data internally. And then lithium ion batteries exploded the facility, and they didn't have solutions outside of that facility to maintain almost a petabyte of information. That there have been so many times like I was working on a film set and someone did something stupid at our video village and we lost a memory card of shooting data that killed half a day of production work, and the gutting look on everyone's face, from the director who was on set to the producer. My arms were tired from holding a boom mic over actors' heads. The performers themselves, who had worked a half a day, and now we're going to have to do pickups because we lost a half a day of a memory card. You could see on everyone's face like, okay, well, we've got to make up this work now. But if there were any opportunity for us to just quit and cancel this movie, we would just quit and cancel this movie. Is like the immediate depressing, soul gutting, just awful feeling of losing data times 858 terabytes of information. So let's let this be a lesson we learn from. Talk to your family and friends. Also, I mean, like this is one of those things where for your most critical information, you can also use like a cloud solution as like some part of a backup strategy. I do not like how expensive our services and subscriptions are. I do not like that it is increasingly expensive to lease online storage. Excuse me, man, I got hiccups. I don't like what's happening to consumers when we talk about like G Drive and OneDrive and iCloud. But if you know, like again, something mission critical and you're going to spend a couple bucks a month making sure that that data is backed up, I think that's a reasonable exchange of currency for a service or a solution. But it has never been cheaper to go get like a 4 terabyte network attached drive and plug it into your mom's router who lives 3 states away and just say, hey, at night, If you see any changes in documents and you see any changes in photos, just move those over and back them up. That this is getting much more accessible, and we can avoid this terrible occurrence when someone loses a hard drive. It's still crazy to me how common that is. And I want you to really think about all your family and friends right now. How many of your family and friends still have one of those old beat up spinning disk external hard drives that they plug into their computer and sometimes back stuff up off their like laptop? Like I got my parents on a 2 bay network storage box. My uncle was all about it. Like I actually started getting back into like Western Digital hardware because my uncle would like, "Oh, I've got these like flash drives and I've got this like new SSD." And he had this 2 bay. It was a Western Digital enclosure and he put 10 terabyte drives in there. And then the Western Digital box, not the drives. The drives were great, but the Western Digital box was so poorly constructed that it overheated as he was just trying to back up information on those drives. Then he pulled those drives out of that box, put them in a different box, and it worked great. Is it kind of contributed to how much I hated Western Digital enclosures, but like Western Digital drives. I digress. You see something like this happen in the news, and it's a way to talk to your family and just say, hey, you know what? Hey, mom, you got your laptop and you've got photos of your kids and your grandkids on the laptop. I want to set up something on your laptop where every night it talks to a hard drive on my network and I'll keep a backup. My uncle, the uncle I was talking about, my firefighter uncle, sent me this in the mail a month ago. It's a little 256 gig PNY micro SD card. I'm gonna put this in the mail and send it back to him. It had 150 gig of photos that I'm just gonna back up on my network storage. I'm just gonna back up my uncle's photos because I have the space to do that. And he didn't send me anything, you know, outstandingly personal or salacious or anything like that. But also like, oh, this is so cool. Like he's got old photos of him and his firefighter buddies. He's got photos of him like going to political conferences and stuff. This is a part of our family history. This is really cool stuff. And like I get to kind of experience parts of his life and his experiences through this little memory card. That's that stuff is awesome. We can be the little hubs and it's not difficult and it's not crazy expensive like it used to be, and these tools can automate in ways that are so much more effective than they used to be. Like I still have my wife's phone hooked up to our NAS so that anytime she plugs it in and it's on Wi-Fi, it'll just start dumping information so that we can back up her photos and stuff. And a lot of those photos are garbage. Like, oh, I saw this thing at Costco. Do you want me to grab it? I don't know I'm gonna keep all of that, but it is this sort of little slice of life things that you don't think about. You're like, "Oh, I've got to get rid of all of this other stuff. This is all garbage and stuff, and so I don't want to back those up." But then I go and look at like my grandfather's slide photos, and he has random weird photos of just like nonsense stuff out in the backyard. Like maybe he was getting to the end of his exposures. He wanted to go and get the film developed. So he just took like it's like a bike, out in the backyard. And it's like, oh, I get to see what that looked like. It wasn't a perfectly manicured portrait or like an action sports shot at, the high school game. It was just that I know what his life was like in 1960s America, and he had a backyard that was messier than mine. So, I don't know. The story in South Korea is sad, but out of that sadness can be born some kind of lesson that hopefully helps you and your family out. And you can show them that article and just say, "Hey, I don't want your laptop to just go up and die and then we don't get all that stuff back. So why don't I help you out? And why don't we do this together and it could be kind of a fun project." Bradley Larcher, I still don't like Western Digital. I still like their red drives. I've got to be very specific here. Western Digital Red Pro, still solid. I personally buy Seagate Iron Wolf drives over Western Digital Red, but I don't think WD Reds are a poor investment. I think you can get great storage, great price, definitely shop sales and stuff. Almost everything else Western Digital I've kind of given up on. But I still do like WD Red. Oh, Bionic Scoop is saying, what? What's up, Scoop? I love it. I love it. All right, let me there are a couple comments here. I just want to kind of check some of these out. Do do do. From Farhan, right now I have two 1 terabyte SSD serving as my external hard drive backup. I thought that'd be enough, but that isn't the case. Now I'm thinking about getting a 4 terabyte SSD. So I think you should seriously look at segmenting your storage. There are programs that need the fastest possible data access. There are active files that you're working on that need quicker access. And then there's probably a bulk of data that is fine if it's occasionally accessed and you don't need the immediacy of an SSD. I think there are good reasons to have a slower big bulk drive and some faster bigger drives working in tandem, and just kind of see if you can start organizing that. Like, here's stuff that I love to kind of peek in on, or here's stuff that I just really kind of want to archive, and then look at like a DAS, a direct attached storage, and go get like two big dumb lump spinning disk drives, and you can get humongous storage in a solution like that, and you can use that to kind of move files around to slower, less frequently accessed partitions. From Ramran, Proton Drive Gang, I love it. And Georgie, I love the 321 rule. 321 rule is 3 copies, 2 different physical places, one being offline when not in sync. Done. The 321 rule, learn it, live it, love it. From Ron. My sister saves all her photos on Snapchat, which is hilarious to me when people like think social media is acceptable for that. Especially like Snapchat was built on the idea of, well, you upload a photo and then it disappears after a day or two. It's hilarious to me that it's like morphed over into something different, but that's not what we used Snapchat for. From On the Road Tang, I don't have much storage, so I just use Google, Microsoft, and Amazon Cloud Storage and really don't pay that much. If I start to get more data, I'll think about a local drive. Excuse me. I do have a local drive too. I don't trust, again, that is up to your comfort level and how valuable you think that data is. But having had a couple hard drives fail in the past and just knowing that there's a life cycle on this stuff, I'm just getting way too sentimental and way too precious. Like if I lost my daughter's first steps video, had the LG V20, she reaches off the couch, arms wide, toddles into my wife's arms. I had the phone. I shot her first steps in 4K. That is a video that I've got, I think, 10 different copies of in different places. I will not lose that video. Like, you cut off an arm and I would refuse to delete that video. So it just it depends on how valuable this stuff is to you. And for me, I think the bar in our heads, the bar is really high for buying this kind of stuff or learning how to use this kind of stuff. And increasingly, when I show people, like my parents, on a 2-bay network box, the barrier to entry is really low now. For them, it was like, oh, we've got to set up this new computing device, and it's like a media serving thing, and I've got to learn how to handle a server. And then you show them the little new GUI that we use that looks just like Windows or Ubuntu, and they're like, oh, yeah, I just load up an app, and then I can do this, and then I tell my MacBook, back it up to the thing, and it's done. And it wasn't that expensive. So that's the thing, is like, I think there's just this mental idea of how complicated technology is when really it's not that bad, and we can do things like stopgap. Like, I can reach out to some other family members and say, hey, I want to be sort of a family historian and back up these photos. Send me what you got and I'll keep them sort of archived on my own systems, and we at least know there's a copy somewhere else in case anything happens to your stuff. My aunt Debbie, uh, her basement flooded. She lives out on the East Coast. Her basement flooded during one of those really bad storms, and she lost decades of photos that were tucked away in these cute little like organized boxes and pallets and stuff, all destroyed, all gone. I mean, just imagine how much that would hurt. She was one of the others, kind of like me. She was like the family photographer. She would do a Christmas party and we'd all get together. You could see all the family in one shot. Like, just imagine losing all that stuff. And we can do some things to kind of help minimize that. From Team Vry, I really need to invest in better data backup hardware. At the moment, all I have is an assortment of USB sticks and a couple of portable drives. Don't get me wrong, that's a part of my strategy too. I don't mess with these much, but I had a whole stack of these SanDisks that then later I questioned the build on these, but I've been doing a few more. I'm testing it out. I am gonna do like maybe a short on this. This is the new PNY. This is a little 2 terabyte. It sounds really hollow, but what they've done is kind of included a lot of extra buffer space, so it's a bit more ruggedized. It's one of the few that I've seen that actually has like a port cover for the USB-C. And again, 2 TB, 2 terabytes. What I like about these is I can kind of what I used to do, especially for my production work for other companies, not the stuff I put on my own channel, is I would finish that project and then I would get one of the smaller SSDs and store it on there, knowing that it could probably survive a year or two. And then I would contact the company and say, hey, I'm just wiping this out. And I had like a whole stack of these. And I would cycle through and just say, like, okay, well, this project was like 5 years ago. I'm not going to hold on to your project data forever. I'm just letting you know I'm deleting it off of my server. And sometimes they'd be like, yeah, sure, go for it. Sometimes they'd say, hey, we'd really love to get something like, can we pay you for the rest of the exclusivity on that content? Um, I don't know. It's just everyone needs to at least just think about it because you'll all come up with a different solution for your own unique needs. Your stuff isn't going to look like my stuff, but I want people to think about it. I want people to consider, hey, what protects me if something gets really messed up? Yeah, John Gow, he's heartbreaking. Oh my God. Uh, the year before that happened, I had shot on my old Canon 7D. I had shot one of the Christmas parties, and I'd made all of the aunts and uncles. I'd made them really nice hardbound photo books, and it was like I was in the process of making it. It took me months after Christmas to finish that book, but in between Christmas and me making that book, her basement had gotten flooded, and it's like my book was literally like the first collection of photos to rebuild her family collection of images, and I mean, like it hurt so bad, but it was also like, well, we can rebuild, and here's this photo book. It's a lot of photos from your house for a Christmas party. From Vasicos, all of this sounds like a video YouTube will bury. Yeah, pretty much. All right, we got one more little news blocky thing, and then we can spend the remainder of our time talking Vivo and some phones and stuff. I just keep wanting to point out um, AI language models are not that impressive. They are not interesting in any kind of assessment of awareness. I've been playing with what's the new one that I've been playing with? There are a bunch of these little like mini projects where you can install a model and run it locally on your own laptop or desktop, your own computer. Um Anything. So anything LLM. And the reason why I've switched over, because I was using something different and it only worked on Intel machines. But I switched over, and anything LLM actually has a really good container that supports Snapdragon. so the X Elite in my Surface 7 laptop, and it does a really good job of peaking the performance on the little NPU. So when I was running my language models on Intel machines, if they had NPUs, you'd still see this huge spike in CPU utilization. So it was just using the CPU and it was so slow. So I started running anything LLM on the Surface and I saw the NPU pick up, and you can still see it's choosing word by word what word is going to come next, but it is phenomenally faster than doing the same kind of language model inference on a CPU. The NPU can do this faster. It is one that takes a lot of the mystique out of this. When you see it operate on like just sort of a normal consumer grade computer, this isn't magic. You can literally see the word text selection choices play out in real time, and it's really not that much more interesting than when you try to do the next word prediction on your smartphone's keyboard. But it is concerning to me how conversational language generated by a computer takes on attitude and authority. I'm typing in questions to this anything LLM. I'm running the larger llama model. So it is a Facebook model. I actually kind of like the llama model, but I've got it contained in anything LLM and it's running off of the NPU. And just to make sure, I also cut off my Wi-Fi just to see, like, is this reporting information back? Is it trying to send stuff out? Is it really just sending my data to a data center and then returning a reply? I air gapped it just for testing it the first time I ran anything LLM. And I'm typing it out questions and I'm asking it things, and it it replies like it really believes that it is an internet-based language model. So as I'm asking it questions, it is answering all the questions, but then when I try to ask about where it's pulling information from, it replies with statements that would convey emotion and opinion, but they do it with authority, and it's wrong. Is it it is programmed to reply in ways where you would think it has an opinion on where it lives. Well, I'm an internet hosted AI chatbot, so I can do this and I can do that. And you're like, well, you're being run locally on a laptop. I hate to break it to you. That's an interesting point. I hadn't considered that. And if you need to look at other types of solutions, maybe you could look at, my model being run on a proper data center. And you're like, I'm engaged in this conversation with an inanimate object that does not know where it lives, but talks about itself with the confidence to say, this is where I live, until you point out to it, no, that's not. And then only for that chat interaction is it able to recall what you asked it. I have a hard time with this framework of personifying. I want the Star Trek computer. I want something that is built and designed to co-pilot information. I mean, to Microsoft's credit, it's a great name for an AI, Copilot. They've done tragically terrible things with Windows 10 and Windows 11, but they got the name right. And I'm glad they're sticking with the name, even if I hate the product and the service right now. But I want something that co-pilots information to me and makes it incredibly clear what the relationship is. I am a computing device that is here to facilitate your queries and your computational needs. And we don't have a parasocial emotional relationship, but that's not what's being built. So, this last article, also shared on the Discord, written up by Sharon Adarlo. Adarlo? I don't know. From futurism.com. New paper finds that when you reward AI for success on social media, it becomes increasingly sociopathic. So, I don't want to knock the article, and I want people to read this article, give this article some traffic, but we're increasingly leaning into the emotional values in these conversations. We're increasingly leaning into the feels that are programmed by these language models to impress upon us that we could be talking to a friend. And I want us to push back against that. An AI, excuse me, a language model, a machine learning large language model cannot become sociopathic because its actions are not dictated by the neurodivergence in a human brain that would create the conditions of a sociopath. It is a word guessing machine. It's really good at guessing what words and what patterns of words will arrive at the facsimile of a meaningful response to a question. They're really good at mimicking what the sound of an answer might be. But there is no there. There is no spark, creativity. That's not what they do. But why I really want to highlight this article is because when we give a computer a criteria, your job is to find a way to manufacture content for social media that gets more likes, that gets more shares, and we've set up a system of grading for points on social media. When we set that up and we give you that criteria, the language model scanning content and looking at other patterns of behavior that have generated success under that criteria, wouldn't you know it, they start mimicking the content that is horrific, misinformation, lies, all of the weaponized stuff that gets people outraged, sharing or condemning or supporting or negating rage bait on Facebook. The language model will look at all of that and say, "Oh, well that's engagement, those are likes, those are shares, those are comments. I'm going to do the same thing." And guess what a language model is really effective at doing? Copying patterns of language and speaking with authority to make it seem like it's emotionally invested in what it's distributing and that it is an authority on the subject that it's discussing. So it's not a sociopath, but it does a really good job of grading success on what a sociopath might do. Just from the article, AI bots are everywhere now, filling everything from online stores to social media. The sudden ubiquity could end up being a very bad thing, according to a new paper from Stanford University scientists who unleashed AI models into different environments, including social media, and found that when they were rewarded for success at tasks like boosting likes and other online engagement metrics, the bots increasingly engaged in unethical behavior like lying and spreading hateful messages or misinformation. It is very easy to build a cult following, a fan base, a um, an aggressive group by telling people what they think they want to hear, lying to their faces about it, and misrepresenting facts in society around them. That's why we still are pushing back against this stupid messaging from current political operatives. It's like what you're saying does not resemble reality at all. But they've said it enough, they said it loud enough, and the people that follow them and the people that support them want what they say to be true. They want to think that the political opposition is both weak and feckless and also completely in charge of everything around them. It's a very 1984, it's a very Orwellian doublethink kind of thing. My opponent is both insufferably weak and omnipresent. You've got to support me so that I will protect you from my political opponent. But also at the same time, my political opponent, they're all morons and terrible and stupid. Like, it's it's maddening because we this is why at the beginning where I was saying is like it's so difficult just to agree on what reality is when we're trying to solve these problems. So it's not surprising to me that if we say the criteria for success is engagement, they're going to copy those tactics. It's every time I tell you someone pisses you off on social media, the worst thing you can do is signal boost the thing that made you upset. Someone said my phone sucks on social media. I know what I'll do. I'll reply to them and I'll engage with their content. And then I'll I'll repost it and I'll quote post it so that I can show them the error of their ways and other people will know that that person is wrong, but I'm going to give that person more traffic. And then Threads is going to say, "Hey, that person who posted something really poopy about your phone and lied about how good your phone is, well, they got a bunch of comments and they got a bunch of shares, and the people who agreed with them, they got a bunch of likes. So, you know what we're going to do is we're going to roll that person into our affiliate program, and now that person's going to get monetized traffic for their engagement. You helped them make money on pissing you off. Do you see how lopsided, how completely practically inverted social media has become from what we set out to do in the first place? Like, hey, this is a cool way for me to keep in touch with some people, with some of my friends from high school and from college, and yeah, our lives have gone different ways. I can always check in and wish them a happy birthday. It's real nice. It's really sweet. Oh, now it's a platform for sharing AI slop, weaponized misinformation, and the platforms are actively paying the people who do the best job at pissing everyone off so they'll keep spreading misinformation. There's a financial incentive to that. So don't support that. And this study, and I want you to go more through the article, and if you do, read the Stanford paper. Um, just sort of helps reinforce and validate this isn't an opinion. Facebook put out their own internal data. People stayed on Facebook longer when Facebook made them miserable. Facebook is directly responsible for this, for the research on how this strategy works, how effective this strategy really is. And now, how every social media model and algorithm seems to be, can I point you down this obscure rabbit hole? Can I make you upset about something? Can I lie to you and then get you to engage with the lie? When we told language models to succeed on these platforms, they very quickly turned to the most successful strategies, which are encouraged by the people who operate and own the platforms. That's how Zuckerberg wants you to use Facebook. He needs another mega yacht, and he needs that by your blood pressure being high so that you stroke out and die earlier. And that's not the worst of what Facebook has done. I would be sad to see you go. But if you keep signal boosting terrible, terrible content on social media, I'll be sad to see you go, but I'm not going to be surprised because, man, you were probably living a life that was miserable and hateful, and you were constantly on the brink of outrage. And yet, every single time we've got cool people in our community who are making cool stuff, it is phenomenally difficult to get people to share the content they like. Like, you like a content creator, you think they make cool stuff, but you're signal boosting someone who makes you pissed off. Do you see how this is fundamentally broken? you see how this is upsetting. Like my buddy TK Bay put out a Vivo X300 video today. He was part of the group that went out and got to go travel and go hands-on. I searched on YouTube Vivo X300 and I got who was it? Was it Tech Chat? No, Tech Chap and no, Tech Tablets. Was it Tech Tablets? I don't remember. I think he was the Australian guy. Anyway, I got him and Ben. So then I searched X300 Pro. Same two top searches, Tech Tablets and Ben. Then I searched X300 Pro TK and I got Tech Tablets and I got Ben. Then I searched X300 Pro TK Bay and top two searches, Tech Tablets and Ben. Then I searched TK Bay X300 Pro and I got Tech Tablets, TK Bay, and Ben. And I had to go to TK Bay's channel to find his X300 Pro after multiple searches of this embargo lifting so that we could talk about the X300 Pro. Of the few tech channels I still watch, TK is in regular rotation. I know I've turned off my search history, but like I don't believe for a second that YouTube still isn't tracking my search and my video viewing behavior because I still get recommended videos when I finish a video. So I'm pretty confident that that's all a lie also. But YouTube kept me from one of my favorite YouTube channels. Even when I put the name of the channel into the search, it went out of its way to give me other channels that are totally fine. Ben does great videos. I like Tech Tablets. Like this isn't like a knock on their channel, but I wanted to specifically see my best friend's first look at the X300 and I was just curious, I wonder if YouTube will put this in the feed when I search for X300 and X300 Pro, and they absolutely did not. So again, some guy like TK Bay is out there making some cool videos, and someone's going to make a video that pisses you off. And do you think that's an opportunity to maybe share TK's video instead of giving more attention and more wealth and more value to the video that upset you? We need to fundamentally change our relationship with social media because the people who own and operate social media platforms have flipped the expectations of the platform against the people that use their platform. So, get this out of the way. Farhan, I found TK's video on the fifth result. Um, oh, Chris is New Zealand. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I couldn't remember if Chris was Australian or New Zealand. I apologize for that. Oh, Rob Albano. I did the same search today. I got Tech Odyssey at the top, then Ben, then TK. That's not bad. That's actually pretty good. I mean, after a point, I was like, man, YouTube is really effing with me here. Because I did like 3 or 4 different searches before TK even showed up. And I had to start doing things like, oh, let me put TK's name in my search before he would even show up in that main list, that first list of search videos. Let me get this out of the way there. So, uh, AI is not sociopathic. Language models aren't people, and we shouldn't talk about them as such. But we can use them to do some interesting study on human behavior, and we can use the output of a language model to predict what will be successful based on previous human interactions. So AI is not sociopathic, but it does a really good job of copying sociopaths. Just thought that was worth reiterating from this article. But read the article, read the paper. There's some really interesting data in there. And try running your own local model and just play with it. I promise you, it is fun, it's interesting, it's cool tech, and it will take all of the magic out of a Gemini and just throw all that away. If someone out there is like, oh, I'm so impressed by what it can do, oh, I ask it questions and I get these answers. Like, no, it's really not that interesting. It it's not this. magic. Your language model is not becoming self-aware because you've talked to it so much. These people that are starting to like cultify around Chat GPT, that's not how any of this works. We need to reiterate, not how any of this works. Yeah, Chris Polland. I just wish YouTube would show me the channels I subscribe to, like ever. But of course, Chris, I do have a video on this on somegadgetguy.com and on youtube.com/, Juan Bagnell at somegadgetguy. If you do want to see the videos from the channels that you subscribe to, I would recommend getting an open source RSS reader and then just putting the channel links go to the channel that you subscribe to, and then go to the main link of that channel, and then just put that link in an RSS reader. And then when they put out new stuff, you'll see that ping on your RSS reader, and then you'll have a manicured, cultivated list of videos from all of your favorite content creators. And depending on how you set that kind of stuff up, and maybe you watch on something like Firefox or one of the other alternative apps for streaming content, like even like a VLC can kind of, you can watch a YouTube video through another app or platform. It's probably better for things like ads and stuff like that too. I'm just saying, it could be better. All right, so who wants to talk about some Vivo? Oh, you know what? I'm gonna. I think we can kind of skip over this. I'm gonna leave this in the show notes. I just don't know that I feel that like that amped about this. The folks over at GSM Arena, both of these articles are coming from GSM Arena. Someone unboxed the iQOO 15 early and went through like the setup and all the things that were in the box. You can catch that. I feel like iQOO and Vivo are sort of leading the way and showing us that the next year of phones are going to be a little more iterative. The changes, the improvements, because all of the chips inside the phones are getting more expensive. I don't think these these phones are going to be radical platform evolutions or radical improvements in the other features and accessories and parts inside the phones. I think we're all going to be eating the cost of TSMC doing all the fab and foundry work for MediaTek and for Qualcomm. When those chip prices get more expensive, it makes the construction of the phone a little more difficult. So I don't think these companies are going to be out there taking bigger risks with the actual products that they're manufacturing this year. So let me get this out of the way. So Chris Pollan, I just want to highlight this. You can go to the subscriptions tab on the menu, but it would be nice if they were also in the regular feed. So you can go to the subscriptions tab, or you can get notifications from an RSS reader and then just open the RSS reader and have your subscriptions tab be the main list of videos that you want to watch. So you can keep rewarding YouTube with extra clicks and more time on site to give you an inferior experience, or you can just take your subscriptions, put them in an RSS feed reader, and have the better experience for what you say you want. Okay. So this is again coming from GSM Arena, and I want you to go also maybe watch like a TK Bay video about this too. We've got the Vivo X300 Pro and the Vivo X300. I'm just kind of doing some of the specs rundown. I am hoping that this means we're getting a simplified rollout of Vivo X300s. The 300 Pro looks exceedingly similar to the 200 Pro. I got a similar 1 over 1.28 inch type main camera sensor. You got the JN1 ultra wide, and the 1 over 1.4 inch Samsung 200 megapixel telephoto. They're saying it's a new sensor. It's the HPB. I don't know how fundamentally different that is from the massive telephoto sensor that's in the X200 Pro. But if I were looking at this phone, I think one of the only main differences that I would point to, where's my X200 Pro? So I'm assuming this is tiny. I mean, again, this is I think how small and iterative we're looking at this stuff. I'm trying to look at their photo and looking at the Vivo photo. I'm looking at the underside of the X300. One of the major differences seems to be that they moved the little LED flash assembly to the right corner of the phone, the correct corner of the phone. So on the X200 Pro, you've got all these massive camera sensors and lenses, and then the little flash assembly is under the camera bulge, whereas on the X300 Pro, it looks like it's above the camera bulge, which is the right place to put a flash assembly. Otherwise, this to me looks like very similar hardware. Guess what doesn't matter about all of the camera sensors on the X300 Pro? You're right. The megapixels mean nothing at all. You don't get better images out of more pixels in your camera sensor. But we are going with a good Sony main camera sensor. I'm again assuming that's going to be around a 23 millimeter ish equivalent main camera sensor, 50 megapixels. The ultra wide, the JN1 is fine. I've become increasingly less precious about the ultra wides because our telephotos have been getting stronger and stronger. And that's the biggie, is going for that 1/1.4 inch telephoto. The telephoto on the 200 and 300 Pro is around the same size as the main goodest camera on a phone like the OnePlus 13. And it is a bigger, better Samsung produced camera sensor for the zoom than what's on an S25 or S25 Plus. The camera sensor on the telephoto for the X300 Pro is very close to the main, biggest, best camera sensor on the Galaxy S25 Ultra. The zoom is so good. When you're looking at the Vivo and the Xiaomi's with that 1/1.4 inch telephoto, it is it is a marked improvement in image quality, that kind of pixel level detail, in depth of field. You get this nice soft background. You shoot like a portrait off of it. I think the focal length is a little long, but if you do some portrait work off of that lens, it is so good. And the low light performance is just phenomenal. So we've got the Dimensity 9500. This is the other thing that I think is going to be kind of interesting is it's paired with Vivo's V3 Plus imaging chip. And I'm wondering if Vivo is going to be getting more aggressive again about applying their own uh, sort of ISP, their own image processing signal path. One of the things that really impressed me when I started covering Vivo more in earnest, this was back during the Vivo X60 and X70s. I'd get a phone and be like kind of playing with it. Like, oh yeah, it's a Vivo. I've always heard that they're kind of cheaper phones, but I started shooting on this X70 and it's doing things that more expensive phones in the United States struggle with. And then I'd fire up a night mode and be like, oh, it finished off this night mode in half the amount of time, but at like double the brightness of this other phone in my collection. Or like Pixels have the best night modes until I pick up a Vivo and like, oh man, this turned night into day. That is ridiculous. So I would say from the X100 and X200, Vivo kind of backed off this extreme speed processing of their HDR and their low light photos. It's not they're pokey, they're not slow, but they're not like so demonstrably faster for the same kind of brightness. And I wondered if that was just like a change in their chip strategy and their signal pipeline. But now they're making more marketing noise about the V3 Plus. And this helps Vivo because they move parts and pieces around. they're going to make some MediaTek powered phones and they're going to make some Qualcomm powered phones. So you don't want to rely on the ISP, the image processing of the MediaTek chip, and then have that be fundamentally different than the image processing on a Qualcomm chip. So you can pull that image processing to a dedicated coprocessor. And then that gives you some other interesting advantages. Like you could maybe run stuff from the screen in a really low power state, not taxing the internal SoC of the phone, but the same chip that helps you process a photo faster could also be used to generate images for your display. Sometimes that's more costly, but often that can help you save power in how the phone is being managed. Some interesting things back and forth where Vivo is making some choices here that I think are like, man, is like I got to be careful. I think they're really interesting. We are talking about the nerdy deep dive. I'm digging a pit to get to changes in silicon, and that to me is interesting. I don't think I'm gonna arrive at a conclusion handling an X300 Pro saying, "Oh, guys, this is the phone. If you've got an X100 Pro, you got to get rid of that garbage and jump to the X300 Pro." I still feel like looking at this stuff on paper, there's going to be a very good argument for someone to stick with an X100 Pro even though the X300 Pro exists. I'm talking little things like I hope they fix the lens flare issues from the X200 Pro, but that's not enough to get me to flip from a 200 to a 300. I mean, dealing with how flary the X200 is, I'm still fine. I'd be fine rocking that phone, holding on to that phone. I'm really anxious to see how the Dimensity 9500 performs. But from the X100 Pro on, we have been flush with compute power. The all big core design on the X100 Pro is not held back at all, is not slowed down in the slightest with the most aggressive workloads that you can put on a phone chip. I just got to revisit the Dimensity 9300 again on the Vivo X200 FE. That phone is still overkill powerful for most of the hardcore enthusiasts that are trying to do things on their phones. So I'm really looking at the strategy. Couldn't catch that cough, sorry. I'm really looking at the strategy and I'm trying to look at some of the gaps. Like a new phone comes out, new features, some interesting new stuff, but who would be the right fit for what changes have kind of uh, accrued? I really feel, and this is not unique to Vivo. I'm not trying to slam Vivo. They didn't fly me out to China to handle the new phone. I'm really trying not to travel. Lex is at like the last couple years of her wanting to hang out with me. I'm not spending months away from my family traveling if I can help it. Um, I'm trying to track this stuff back, and I feel like the Vivo X80 and X80 Pro were the crown jewel, one of the crown jewel devices of its generation. I have like a series of videos on the X80 Pro, and I actually did some sponsored work with Vivo. I have to, sort of disclose that, but like that phone impressed me on so many levels, and it was sort of the last of its generation, showing like the peak sort of hardware software interactions, the combinations, and for me starting to embarrass devices like Pixel Pros and Galaxy Ultras. Then I think Vivo took kind of a corrective year, not unlike OnePlus, and the Vivo X90 moved us up in one regard. We got like a better main camera sensor, but we lost some of the other aggressive hardware pushes that made the X80 Pro so interesting. And then I feel like they got their sea legs under them, and just again, like OnePlus, going from the OnePlus 11 to the OnePlus 12, the X100 Pro came back with a vengeance. That phone still today rocks my socks. And it's not a foregone conclusion. If I pick up the X200 Pro, my X100 Pro's over on the bookshelf behind me, I will probably like a lot of things better from the X100 Pro, and there are some things that I like better on the X200 Pro. So I'm looking at the 200 Pro and the 300 Pro, and I really feel like they're the multi-year replacements for the X80 and the X90. If someone out there had the X90, they had a really interesting transition year device. It's a very good phone, but it didn't quite have that Vivo X magic like the phone before it and the phone immediately after it. So if you're in the X80, X90 window, you're at the end of an era or on a transition phone, jump to a 200, jump to a 300. Then I think you'll see like, oh, there's something really like that's a huge leap. A big leap in processing power, a big leap in battery life. The camera sensors might be upgrades or downgrades depending on what phone you were playing with, but all around a better, polished, refined product than what I feel that especially the X90, what I feel the X90 was. We're going back 3 generations, guys. It's 3 gens back for me to point to someone and say, you will feel and love this as an upgrade. Everything about this will be an upgrade over the phone that you're using. I can't say that with the X100, and I definitely can't say that with the X200. And to me, that puts the X300 Pro in a really precious place. It's hard to kind of put all the feels in that. But now our changes from year to year are getting finer and finer. There are refinements. I just pointed to the LED flash location. I think that's an upgrade. But it puts me in that precious place where I have to say like 95% of this experience could probably be bought on sale if you drop down to an X200 Pro. Yeah, you don't get the top of the line Dimensity, but something tells me you're probably not going to max out a 2-year-old top of the line Dimensity. So maybe that's fine. And just other things too, LTPO display, 120 hertz refresh, 1260 by 2800 resolution display, HDR10 plus Dolby Vision. I think again, bringing the Dimensity 9500 is going to give us some fun capabilities like crazy high frame rate HDR video. Awesome. That stuff will be fun to play with, but I still kind of hate editing and working in HDR. So that's not something that was super high front of mind for me, but I love shooting 120 frame per second video on my Vivo and on my Xiaomi. You'll see it in a lot of my phone videos. That's what I'll use as like a high quality slow motion if I just want to do a panning shot. Bluetooth 6, their USB-C 3.2 Gen 1 port. So the USB will get faster. Wi-Fi 6, and it's going to run the new Origin OS based on Android 16. The other thing that I think is kind of interesting in this X300 launch, and why I said at the top of this, I hope they're simplifying just a little bit. I don't like having an X300. I mean, sorry, from last year we had the X200, the X200 Pro, the X200 Pro Mini, the X200 FE, and the X200 Ultra. And I think we can kind of simplify that on the X phones. I don't think an FE makes a lot of sense when it's really closer to like a V series phone. I think if we're going to call it X, we're going to put it in the cool black box. I have my, my Vivo black boxes handy here over on my little desk over on the side. You're going to put the case and the fast charger in there, all the cool stuff that makes a Vivo X series phone a premium luxury experience. I think we can whittle that down to 3. I think we can bounce the FE. I think the X300 being the smaller phone makes a lot of sense. I don't think we need an X300 that is almost the same size as the X200. Sorry, let me rephrase. There's so many X's and numbers. I don't think we need an X300 that is almost the same size as the X200 Pro. There we go. That was a hard sentence to accomplish. So here's my X200 and my X200 Pro, and it really doesn't make a lot of sense to me to have two phones that are almost exactly the same size. I think you can just move one up, the larger phone with the bigger housing and the bigger camera dial on the back. That one can have bigger camera sensors, and then the smaller phone can still have very good camera sensors, but make it a smaller phone. Right here, it's literally just the bezel, the forehead bezel space at the top of this is the difference in size between these two devices. I don't think we need to do that anymore. So it would be really cool if there was kind of a blurring, like maybe the X300 replaces what would have been the X300 Pro Mini, and it's just the smaller version of the phone. I'd be fine with that. I'd actually think a lot of companies would do well simplifying and sort of narrowing all of their little permutations of product offerings. I don't understand how companies make money on this stuff when all of the tooling, all of the R&D, getting assembly line, packaging, distribution, shipping, just make a core version of the phone, and then you can tweak what you need to do for different regions and different distributions, but like that's got to be cheaper than having 3 or 4 different frames of devices that all need to be assembled in different ways. So, what else? Oh, so the X300, also MediaTek Dimensity 9500, same options for RAM and storage up to 16 and 512. What are we seeing? 90-watt wired charging, 6,000 milliamp hour battery, smaller overall size. The X300. Okay, so according to GSM Arena, the X300 has a 200 megapixel primary camera, so it's using the 1 over 1.4. So the main camera sensor on the X300 is going to be closer to the main camera sensor on the OnePlus 13. That's solid. That is a really good upgrade. The X200, I think, has a 1 over 1.56. That's a smaller camera sensor. It's more like a Galaxy S24, S25. It's going to get a half-inch telephoto sensor. That's a pretty good telephoto sensor. That's going to be a slightly bigger telephoto sensor on the regular X300 than what's in the Pixel Pro. Pixel 10 Pro XL has a smaller telephoto camera sensor than what's going to be on this smaller X300. And then also that little JN1 for the ultra wide. This actually is a much better step down. So going from X300 Pro to X300 is a much better transition lower than the X200 Pro to the X200, and it looks like it will be a smaller phone for that, for those compromises. Again, smaller phone, and it's going to have a battery bigger than the battery in the Pixel 10 Pro XL. We are not getting the best out of Apple and Google and Samsung. I wanted to find. Oh, okay. So just getting down to prices, and I don't know what all of the permutations of regional pricing and uh, international pricing and China versus global models. I need to personally do a better job of tracking down what the different rates are. But the Vivo X300 Pro is going to be priced around the equivalent of $745 for the 12 gigs of RAM, 256 gig variant. So I want you to compare that with the 256 gig version of the Pixel 10 Pro XL, the phone that it should be doing competition against. You buy it in China, it's $500 cheaper than a Pixel 10 Pro XL. $845 for the 16 gig 512. Oh, and they do. GSM worded this confusingly. There is going to be a 1 terabyte version of the phone for $945. I don't think those are going to be the global prices. I need to look that up. If someone has already seen it, please drop me a comment what the global prices might look like for a Vivo X300 Pro. At least the 512, like 16 512 is probably my sweet spot when I'm looking at a potential review device. I don't know that I'll jump for the 1 terabyte. I'm really trying not to buy every single international review phone that's out there right now. So, some really interesting stuff there. I don't think this is a radical departure. Like the Vivo X80 to the X90, I felt was a transition year to see if they could minimize costs after going with a more expensive main camera sensor. Then the X90 to the X100. To me, the X100 was kind of a return to what made the X80 so nice. And then the X100 to the X200 was a big parts rearrangement. Smaller main camera sensor, more powerful SoC, much bigger telephoto sensor. So it was a different, sort of pouring of the ingredients. Now, the X200 to the X300 to me looks a lot more iterative again. John Gao is saying, I don't think we'll know the global pricing until the global release next month. Um, it's always interesting to me. Like I'm always jealous of like my buddy TK because that dude does a lot of travel, but I am also old. I do not know how that dude keeps up with so many trips back to back to back to back. That man is a machine, especially because he doesn't work with a team. Like he shows up, he shoots his stuff, he edits it in the hotel room. Like, man, I am old and tired. But let me just kind of track back. We've got a lot of comments here. This is still, I think, going to be one of my most anticipated phones of the next year, even though it's launching in October. But still, um, Google just brought out their new Pixel. I am almost done with the video comparing the Pixel 10 Pro XL against the X200 Pro, and I might not even publish that publicly. Like, I might just put it out on the Patreon and just say, like, man, I don't want to hurt Pixel fans' feelings, but there's nothing on the Pixel 10 Pro XL that makes me feel like I'm really getting the device I'm paying for. And then I pick up a Vivo and it is less expensive, does more, does better. And I can't buy that here. I can't recommend it to a group of people that are concerned about support and maintenance and like if the screen cracks, is there a way for them to replace the screen? That kind of stuff. And it's such a shame because the X200 Pro murks the Pixel on almost every single category or criteria that we could compare two phones against each other. Vazikos is saying still the small sensor behind the ultra wide lens. I appreciate the concerns on the ultra wide. Back when we were really only getting two good cameras on the back of a phone, I was a massive ultra wide snob. I think peak probably around the OnePlus 9 Pro. OnePlus 9 Pro had that awesome. It was a 1/1.56 inch type sensor on the back of that phone, great ultra wide. I liked the images that I got from the X200 Ultra, which has a bigger ultra wide camera on the back. I feel it is more critical to have a larger ultra wide when you have a narrower main camera. We had an extended conversation about camera sensors and focal lengths on the Patreon chat, the live chat. It was incredible. Um, just bouncing back and forth. And actually, I think it started there and then bled over into the private Discord. I think there was actually a bigger part of that on the private Discord. I am sorry, my brain is Swiss cheese, and I'm just constantly replying to comments on my phone from a variety of different places. I can't always remember exactly where all those things started. I digress. The Vivo X200 Ultra has a 35 millimeter equivalent main camera, and I think it matters more that the Ultra has a bigger ultra wide because you might want to crop to get to a 23 millimeter equivalent look. So you want a higher quality sensor on the ultra wide then. If you already have a really wide main camera, 23 millimeter equivalent is a really wide field of view. I don't think the ultra wide is as precious. And a 1 over 2.7-inch type sensor is still pretty big. It's not great. It will definitely perform poorer in lower light conditions. But for me, the big win is if I'm in a cozy living room and I'm hanging out with family and friends and I want to get a great shot of some kind of interaction, like a hug or two people laughing, that's what the telephoto is for. It is so rare that I feel I need to set up a shot or try and candid set a capture a shot from an ultra wide, because if I'm using the ultra wide, to me, that's I want to get a lot of information in the scene, right? So I'm hanging out with family and friends, cozy indoor lighting, and I say, "Hey, let's just get a photo everyone together." I can use the ultra wide and pair it with a night mode, and that's going to look pretty good. I'm probably not using that ultra wide for anything that's got like action or movement or kind of an off the cuff feel or a candid feel. I'm setting them up. They're all going to hold still for me. I'm going to tap it. It's going to do its scan. I'll probably get a second one. It'll do its scan, and that photo is going to look great. And I can do that on a smaller ultra wide sensor. I appreciate why people are sensitive to this because it is technically a downgrade from some of the previous Vivos and some of the other phone manufacturers out there that use bigger sensors on all of their camera sensors, all of their camera lenses. But I kind of get what Vivo is trying to do, and I appreciate that that compromise hits in the least disastrous way on the way that I like to use a phone camera. And when you've got a really good main camera and that's a really wide sensor, and you've got a really good telephoto and that's also a really good sensor, it takes some of the sting for me off of also not having the bestest ultra wide. So that's, again, I'm not telling anyone they're wrong if they're frustrated that it still has a smaller ultra wide. I'm just saying that's where I'm coming from, and it just puts more focus. Hopefully we get an international release for the Vivo X200 Ultra, right? If we want that big, beefy, ultra wide sensor, got to show some interest, and let's see if we can convince Vivo to start shipping those out internationally as well. From Hikari, it's one thing I'm happy about with the Chinese phones this time around is they're getting rid of proprietary charging protocols and using standard PPS like Xiaomi. I think after a point you reach that tier where it's like, hey, it's just better for us all if we work together. I really liked when Vivo and Oppo and OnePlus all shared a more common charging language. And even though Vivo doesn't use Super VOOC, I felt okay knowing that that version of fast charging seemed to speak both phones' languages, and I could plug a Vivo into my OnePlus charger. You got to be really careful with some of that, like in expecting things to charge fast, and you don't want stuff running hotter than it should. But it would be nice. Like, just now I think we've gotten battery tech to a point where get these companies working together, coming up with a consortium, making this a proper standard, and then Samsung, Google, and Apple can fall even farther behind because they won't license actual good battery tech in their phones. From Daniel, I just found funny that the sensors are reversed on the Vivo X300 compared to the X300 Pro. The 200 megapixel sensors on the vanilla is in the main camera, while on the Pro it's in the telephoto. Oh, and I explained that too. That's the biggest sensor in the phone. They took the medium sensor on the Pro and turned that into the biggest sensor on the X300, and then they got a smaller sensor for the telephoto, and then they kept the smallest sensor for the ultra wide. So they just kind of stacked down a tier, but it's still a really good tier. Again, I will point that 1 over 1.4 inch type sensor is really good. You want that sensor. You want that sensor better than what's in an iPhone 17 non-Pro. You want that sensor over what's in a Galaxy S25 or S25 Plus. And it's a sensor that is nipping at the heels of the main camera sensor in the Pixel 10 Pro XL. It's not quite there, but it's real close in terms of surface area. You should not feel like that's a compromise on a smaller phone that's less expensive. That's a pretty good get, and it is an upgrade over the sensor that's in the X200 non-Pro. On the road, Tang, what are your thoughts on the Exynos chip in the Samsung Z Flip 7? I have not used it yet. I'm trying to get my hands on one. I despise Samsung as an organization. I think their PR probably feels likewise about me. I have no interest in trying to do any work with them or rebuild that bridge. I think they're awful. I do not like talking about their products, services, or their company, and I point to them only begrudgingly as like some of the last vestiges of competition that we can point to in the technology space. And if they were doing their job, then I think tech would be in a much more fun place today. I'm still trying to get my hands on one just because I want to see, but I don't have a lot of high expectations on Exynos. I think it'll be fine for what it is. And I don't think we're going to get much out of any flip phone based on the limitations inherent in making a phone bend itself in half. It means you have less room for cooling, you have less room for battery, you have less room for anything. So I expect it'll probably be the poorest performing version of any Exynos in a premium priced device. But that's also true of any other flip phone too. It was true of the Moto. I reviewed a Moto and it's like, hey, this has got a really hot chip in it, but it's also a really hot chip, so you don't have room to cool it. I also have my Xiaomi Mix Flip, whatever generation this is, and it's fine, but you definitely shouldn't have put a Qualcomm 8 series Snapdragon in here because it doesn't run like a Qualcomm 8 series. It runs like the Snapdragon 7 series because it's constantly at that limit of like thermal throttling if you do more than like a couple if you do more than a minute worth of work on it. Nick Gay, I want to deep dive into Vivo's strategy more than anything else. Do dual co-processors, Samsung sensors, JN5 in particular, how they're getting better images from a Samsung sensor than a Samsung phone can get. And also one of the things too is the sensors on these Vivos are better than the sensors that are going into Samsung's phones. Samsung does not sell a phone using that 1 over 1.4-inch sensor as a telephoto. It put that sensor in as a main camera on it on what on the Edge, right? I think the Edge is using that 200 megapixel sensor as the main camera. That's not exciting like using that for the telephoto and then seeing how good those telephoto shots are. Samsung is not giving us their best. Other companies are buying better parts from Samsung than one Samsung is using in their most expensive phones. Oh, everyone say hey to my Aunt Kathy. She popped up in the chat. Hey, Aunt Kathy, hope you're doing well. In all caps. And I don't think I can argue with her. I think my Aunt Kathy is completely correct. She says, you are such a great father wanting to spend as much time with Lexi and not travel. Period. This is something my wife and I have talked about a lot. I mean, as she gets a little older, gets into mid school, I think I might need to just sort of reset some of my terms and how I cover topics and getting out and just doing more of these press junkets. I really don't like how the industry has turned everything into a localized individual event that eats up all of your time. When I started getting into tech, it was massive trade shows where corporations knew all of the media was going to be at CES, so they could launch all around CES, sometimes a little before, sometimes a little after, but like I didn't have to plan separate trips. And now, especially I think Samsung really blazed this trail, and another reason why I hate this company. They started doing their own events, purposely separating you from the more mainstream collected events. And now it's like you could go your entire year flying from phone release to tablet release to laptop release and never getting to see your home. Like you could probably spend the entire year out on the road if you like really tracked all of the consumer tech. Maybe you did some consoles in there, maybe you did some VR headsets in there, maybe you did a couple like R&D, promo or sponsored videos. You could probably leave your house on January 1st and not get back until New Year's of that year if you planned out your schedule appropriately. So I've just decided, while my daughter is still young enough to kind of appreciate me being at home, like I was just going to be super selective. You're asking me to leave my home. You want me to focus on your company. You don't want me to leave your home and talk about a whole bunch of competing devices. You want me to leave my home and only talk about you. And I feel I need to be very selective about when I will agree to those terms. When I'll agree to that. It is what it is. Bradley Larcher, my buddy, just got the X200 Ultra. If the screen on his X90 Pro Plus hadn't died, he would if I misread your comment. If the screen on the X90 Pro Plus display didn't die, he still would have upgraded. He loves that X90. I think you mean he wouldn't have upgraded. Is that what you meant? Yeah, he said would not have upgraded. But yeah, I mean, the X90 was a banger phone. For me, it was just, it lacked some of the refinement. If you hold an X80 and an X90 side by side, they feel like different tiers of device. One feels better built than the other. But again, like that's how far back we got to go. I think like again, you go to the X200 Ultra and you're like, yeah, I'm sure he appreciates there's some things that are better on the X200 Ultra, but his X90 was still getting the job done. That's the soonest I can go back and say I think you'll feel like you have an upgrade. If you pick up an X200 Ultra or an X300 Pro today, I don't think it's going to feel like an upgrade if you were jumping from an X100 Pro. I think it will feel like an upgrade if you're jumping from an X90, and I think it's going to feel huge if you go back to like an X70. Go from the 70, skip the 80, the 90, the 100, the 200, and whoa, 6 generations later, this phone feels like such a great upgrade. So from John Gao, and I think John Gao, you're getting some replies also from dudes like Barry. One, everyone say hey Barry in the chat. Barry Johnson, one of my favorite people on the planet. John Gao says it looks like the LYT 828 image sensor has some new HDR tech compared to the 818 with hybrid frame HDR. Not sure what is new with the HPB versus the HP9. So, one of the things that I'm going to be very anxious to see, the one of the only performance and processing compliments that I can give the Pixel 10 Pro XL. For years now, all of these sensors that have been in our phones have actually supported higher quality content capture. For some reason, one of the first companies to turn this on, and it turned it on an older main camera sensor, has been Google. The Pixel 10 Pro XL is the phone I would trust the least to do a lot of crazy aggressive high bitrate video recording, but it's the first one to support 12-bit video, 12-bit raw video capture. If you go into motion cam and you shoot 12-bit, it is noticeably different in how it's handling lower light content, the noise, the grain, the image quality is better than if you're shooting 10-bit. All of these big, expensive, fancy camera sensors have supported this. The company that I'm actually a little disappointed in, I've been trying to dig into like metadata and see what the quality is. My Xiaomi I think ends up shooting the lowest quality video in the Xiaomi camera app than any of the other Pro and Ultra phones on the market. It does an 888, it does an 8-bit video when you just use the Xiaomi camera app, and then you can go into something like Motion Cam and shoot 10-bit if you want a higher quality video. I don't like working with raw video in Motion Cam, but you can. You can step up the video quality. I'm hoping that when we hear, like, you went through the trouble of putting in a new main camera sensor. You went from the 818 to the 828, and it does fancier HDR. I'm hoping that means if we go into the Pro video mode, it's just going to give us higher quality video natively, like maybe better bit rates, and also just go from 8-bit video to 10-bit video. Just take the step up. The phone is capable of giving us something better. Let's use it. Let's make the improvement. I fear what this is and why this is being leveraged and what this is being utilized for is going to be excessively narrow. This gives them the feather in their cap that they can beat the iPhone with 120 frame per second Dolby HDR. And that is cool. And very few people are going to use that, live in it, work with it. That is going to be a very difficult video file to incorporate into a lot of workflows out there, especially those of us who are still mostly SDR shooters. Rec 709 for life, baby. So instead, instead of 120 frame per second Dolby HDR, I would love to have 12-bit video with incredible clarity, much better pixel level data, and much lower noise without smearing detail by doing denoising in my videos. I'd much rather have that. But we don't need fancy new sensors for that. The sensors we have currently all support that higher that higher higher data video quality. So much so, the lowly, hobbled, poor performing Pixel 10 Pro XL can shoot that. And it looks pretty good. I see it on my Pixel. I really, really want it on my Vivo. Just give it to me. Give me better video. Do it. Don't just do gimmicky HDR. Just all the video. Make all the video better. Give me settings like I used to have on the LG V20. Let me go in there and say, hey, with H.264 compression, let me double the bitrate. A Sony Xperia could shoot 100 megabit per second video. Give me that. I want that. I want that. Give it to me. But I don't think that's what we're gonna get. Yep. Barry, again, just bringing the points. This new HF HDR is two things. One, it has access to dual conversion gain, something that a lot of these sensors have DGC. That's what enables the Pixel to do this 12-bit raw video. It's DGC. Um, 2 exposure levels per frame, which boosts dynamic range. It also can do it in small exposure levels. Unfortunately, the only phone that has actually implemented that would be the Pixel 10 Pro XL with Motion Capture Pro. There are a ton of filmmakers on YouTube that have shown this on their Pixels. So Barry beat me to that long-winded explanation that I just shared. But DGC is huge. That is what enables this higher quality video, lower noise, better grain, better image clarity, and that should just be in your Pro mode. You want to make the regular video mode like for average basic consumers, cool. But the second I go into Pro mode, at least give me 10-bit. At least give me 50 megabit per second video capture, if not 100 megabit per second video capture. I don't get it. It's so silly. Boom, 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 boom. Oh yeah, Team Vry is saying, Juan, I've been to a handful of media events this year, and they are busy AF. And again, Team Vry, like I'm saying, man, it would be okay if, like, hey, you were sponsoring me to go to this trade show. I could cover the trade show and then do some specific sponsored content for your brand. But that's not what's happening anymore. Now it's we occupy your entire trip and you don't get to do anything or look at anything or talk about anything else, and we own you for the days that you're there. I am so tired of that. Team Fry. 2025 is the year. I was more excited for the Poco F7 series. Here's my Poco F7 that I have a video coming out on this soon too. Poco F7 than the Pixel 10 series. I think a lot of folks are, I don't know. To me, it's tough to gauge what actual interest there is. Because in the YouTuber space, I know I'm talking to a specific set of enthusiasts, and I don't know. I really don't want people to feel bad about what they buy, but I do not think Google, Samsung, and Apple are bringing us their best. And I'm so tired of pointing this out to people and them saying, "Oh, but I mean, does it even matter if I spend $1,200 on a phone that does less than my 5-year-old iPhone?" Don't you think it matters? Why would you be okay with a company charging you more for less? But again, we also voted into power an FCC chairman that thinks it's cool to let ISPs sneak fees back into your bill. So that's great. From Chris Pollard, am I odd in almost never shooting anything ultra wide? I use telephoto way more than anything else. Maybe I'm an outlier. I used to use the ultra wide a lot on the Pixel 9 Pro because it was actually narrower. It wasn't a wide, crazy like panorama view. So for a lot of my talking to camera stuff, especially during that Pixel 9 Pro era, I would hold that out and I'd actually get like a nice, it was wider than the main camera, but it wasn't fisheye lens wide. I liked that a lot. And I think there's still some benefit to that on the Ultra again, because I feel with that larger sensor, you can crop in a little, have more space. You don't have to worry about like such a tightly confined head and shoulder shot from that main camera. You can do some really interesting things with that. But like you, I've kind of moved on to doing a lot more with my telephoto cameras than I do currently with my ultra wides. Oh, and a bunch of people like kind of jumping in and kind of joining that conversation too. Um, oh, I got to shout this out from Nick A. Don't forget where to learn mobile photography. Juan's book. I need to say this because he doesn't say it enough. Take better photos. Smartphone photography for noobs. Currently available on Amazon Kindle, and I'm still working out how to get my license set properly for other book distribution. I promise you it is coming. But yes, thank you for promoting the book that I wrote that I don't talk about as much as I should. Uh, oh, yep. Barry, again, adding that good data. What's even crazier, the Pixel 10 has the Samsung GNV, which was used by Vivo. Originally, the GN1, and I think the GNV was on the. Was it on the X80? I don't remember. But that's how old the sensor is in the Pixel. It's just a refined GN1, which has been around for a little while. Sorry. The dual conversion gain sensors are also used in the Samsung Ultra, but only the Pixel 10 Pro XL has enabled it, which is dumb. I mean, when you see what it does, you give the phone and the software better data to work on, you get better video. Like, we keep pointing this stuff out and then we keep settling, oh, but isn't it fine if it's just like basic and it looks kind of crappy? Cool. I guess it's fine. So that's great, I guess. And Chris Pollard, probably the note to go on out on. There are a lot of interesting phones out there. We just don't get them in North America. Best outlier we get is OnePlus. I think over this next year, well, first of all, like literally over this next week, we're going to be getting some more information on the Vivo X300 series. We're going to be getting some more information on the iQOO, the new iQOO that's coming out. The OnePlus 15 is probably going to be getting its Chinese announcement. over the next, it's tomorrow, right? OnePlus 15 is tomorrow. And then we've got a lot of chatter. Companies are finally getting ahead of Android 16. So we'll probably have some more to talk about soon when it comes to beta programs and launching Android 16. Vivo is going to be doing some interesting stuff with that too. So this isn't, to me, this is interesting. It's such a wild transition year, but everything feels like it got front loaded even harder. Like all of these phones and all of this updating and all this software coming out in October for the next year of devices. The Vivo X300 is the phone that's going to do battle mostly over 2026. And we're getting it in month 10 of 2025. Wild. That is insane. So we're going to be talking up Qualcomm 8 Elite Gen 5s, Dimensity 9500s, and we're going to have to wait a whole calendar year before we see if Google can dig themselves out of Tensor 5's issues. I'll be curious to see what Apple is trying to do on limiting their phones even more. Like if the iPhone Air sells in any significant quantities, we should expect Apple to go even harder on removing features from their devices. And the unknown here in the United States is Samsung. What is Samsung going to do to impress upon us as they get into the 6th year of devices? That are they finally going to give us some practical differences and upgrades? Or are they going to make us keep rebuying cases for the same basic phones they've been selling since 2020? There's so much potential out there. And we keep getting closer and closer to realizing some of that potential, and then things just totally whiff. Your phone could be your computer. Oh, Android and Chrome are gonna merge, and Google's going in on desktops. Do you think Google's gonna make Android desktop software and build in all of the stuff that they learned from Chrome? Or do we think that they're gonna try and ratchet this stuff down so we have to use their app stores? Like, we get so close to something being like a legit consumer this could be a new paradigm, this could move the needle. Oh, you're going to limit Android on phones, and you're going to make a version of Android for tablets, and then you're going to make a different version of Android for laptops and a different version of Android for desktops. It's like we already feel the cynicism built into the thing that could have been the potential. And then some news, but didn't you always want Android to be on the desktop and then you could use Android as your computer? But I don't want to buy another computer, dipshit. I wanted to use my phone and then have my phone turn into a computer. That's what I wanted. Oh, Bradley Larcher, I don't think it's launching. I thought there was like a OnePlus event, wasn't there? Someone was saying in the chat. Did I get that wrong? ASOT was asking the question. I thought, something was going on. I don't have a OnePlus 15. I can't comment on anything they might be doing. I thought that was, hold on, let's just see. OnePlus 15 China launch. Oh. Oh no, I have that a week off. Next week, not tomorrow. I still don't have one. I don't know what's going on. And let me be straight with y'all. If I do get a OnePlus 15, it's not going to be the Chinese version. They've never ever sent me the Chinese version. And if they had, I would have had it by now, and I just would not be talking about anything relating to OnePlus. I thought it was I felt it was tomorrow. I thought it was tomorrow. So I guess we've got another week to go there. All right. Let's go ahead and wrap all this up. Thank you for letting me just be a little floppier and a little looser on this one. I still ran this podcast crazy long, but my voice isn't completely shot, so maybe the healing has begun. I have a lot of stuff coming out. Some of this I can't really talk about just yet. Like this OnePlus 15 I have on my desk. I can't tell you anything about that because I don't have it. We've got some really fun videos. I've got a mini PC. I've got some software updates. I don't know. Hit me up on social media or hit me up on Discord or Patreon. I might shelve my X200 Pro versus Pixel 10 Pro XL video. I just don't know that I want to bring that out on YouTube public. Maybe that'll just be a Patreon exclusive. I'm very, like I said, I'm not depressed. It's not like I'm sad or I'm upset or I'm angry. There's just this apathy that why put it out on YouTube if people aren't really going to have kind of an engaged conversation about it? The people on Patreon will probably dig it. So maybe I'll just keep it there. Give me some feedback. What are your thoughts? What are you feeling? What do you think? Hit me up on the Discord, hit me up on Patreon or any of my social media channels, shoot me an email. I really don't know that I care that much about YouTube anymore. So we'll see. Folks, have a great week. I want you to do awesome with your technology. I want you to be awesome with your technology. I'll catch you back here next week for another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. Be safe. Take care of yourself. Take care of that mental health so you can keep being the amazing tech neighbor I know you to be. The world needs more of you who can help your family and friends because they do not know what they don't know. And I'll catch you back here next week. Be safe. Take care. I love you all.